Hello there, this is a mini tutorial on how to holster a weapon as per requested by a viewer called James. And this is going to be a tutorial beginning all the way from the third person project example here. So select that one. I just call mine weapon tut and creating the project. So what you also want to do is to go to this 3f3dm.com and you can search for various weapon models. So I just searched for M4A1, and I think for this video I picked this one, but yeah, I believe you can choose whatever you want. But if you want to do it exactly the way I do it here, then just pick this one. I should also mention that I haven't really figured out how to attach the skins. So if you want something with skins on, with textures, then you might want to pick another one. So anyway, this is what I did. So this is a completely blank project, and we have all the standard stuff. Oh yeah, and one thing you also want to do for this tutorial is to go into the library and add animation starter pack to the project, and weapon tut here, add to project, and that's gonna create this one up here. So this one comes with its own skeleton, and currently this this third-person example has its own animations. So for this example, I'm not going to use this. I'm just going to show how to holster the weapon and that stuff. So first of all, let's go ahead and pick out the animation that we want to use for this. So one of them is going to be the idle rifle iron sights, this one. So you go ahead and duplicate this, retarget, and nothing shows up in here, but if you uncheck this one, you can pick this one, and since they are in exact same pose, we can just do this. This is a kind of a shortcut, and it's not what you normally want to do. Normally you want to use the retarget manager and make sure that they are compatible, but this is, yeah, whatever. So this is idle, and then we have an animation here called equip, this one, and we're going to do the same, and there we go. So once you do this, they will end up under the character folder in the mannequin character and the mesh, and just remove that one, then you will end up with these two here. So let's get rid of that. Okay, and let's bring in the animation, or the model for the weapon. Once you unpack this, I unpacked it in this folder. How do I move up? Okay, well, this one you're gonna get a zip file, and on the text you have the FBX. You can just drag that one in. I'm just gonna pick a place for this new folder, weapon, and let's bring in that one. And just hit import. I don't import a skeleton, and I actually don't want to import the materials because they kind of screwed up. So just get rid of that one. So you will get this little guy here, the weapon. And what we want to do with this, actually let's just let it hang here for a bit. So, and let's go back to the animations here. What you also want to do once you get started with this is to get organized a little bit. So create a subfolder under the animations here and drag in these two animations that we just retargeted, like that. And I kind of like to do this on the idle iron sights, because what I want to do first is to get the weapon positioned on my character here. So he's gonna hold the gun in his right hand. So click the right hand here and add a socket and call this the the weapon socket. And you can right click that afterwards and say add a preview asset and type M4A1. And that's gonna bring in a little gun here. Whoops. A little trick for this character movement here is you can either use this one, the slider up here, or you can hold down the right mouse button and scroll on your mouse. So that's gonna, if you scroll, move that, and then scroll towards yourself, it's gonna move the camera way slower. So that's a nice little trick once you navigate around in here. So you want to click now the weapon socket here, and then turn the weapon in place. What I kind of like to do when I do this is to disable snapping for the rotation grid, and also snapping in the scale here. So, and I press space to switch in between these, translate scale and yeah, translate, rotate and scale. So I'm just gonna position the gun sort of. See, kind of want to put the weapon kind of like here, and line it up with the barrel up with the left hand. Actually, this doesn't need to be exact right now, because this is going to be a fairly short tutorial, so I'm just gonna, yeah, this is almost okay, I think, because yeah, it takes a little tweaking back and forth to get this right. So let's say that you are satisfied with this, then you can yeah, let's hang on a sec. Okay, I'm not really satisfied anyway. So there, it looks okay, and the finger's kind of sticking into the. God damn it. Okay, this is gonna be okay for now. Well, obviously you want to put the barrel a little further down like that, and then you want to adjust this a little bit. Sometimes it also helps to switch in between world and a local space to just make it easier to move it around. So anyway, if let's say we are satisfied with this is not really good, but it's not that bad anyway. So what you have now is a position for the rifle. It's not going to show up inside the game, but it's going to be here once you attach the weapon. So let's begin by getting this pose into the game, and then spawn the weapon as it is here right now. So we have the blueprint for the character. I think they hide it down here. Okay. I don't really get this structure anyway, so I'm gonna move the third person character blueprint up to under mannequin, like that. And I'm gonna take the animation, third person animation blueprint, and also move that to the mannequin, because these two are pretty tightly tied together, so I want to be able to switch back and forth between these two. So what you want to do inside the third person character to spawn the weapon, find the place here, begin play, and you want to spawn a weapon And since this is, let's drag this one up here. Since this is right now, it's a static mesh, and you can't really, well, you can, but you want to have additional stuff on this, like stats and ammo and damage and whatever. So you want to right click this one and say asset actions and create a blueprint. Let's just click OK. So that's going to create a blueprint with a static mesh, which is the gun here. Okay. So where did I put it? Under blueprints. Okay, I'm just going to move it to my weapon folder here. Move. Oh, it's already. Give it a name. Underscore BP. Okay, so let's go back inside the third person character and begin play. And you start off by spawning spawn actor from class, and the class you want to spawn is the M4A1 BP, and it's gonna require a transform, so it doesn't really matter, I think, but let's just get the actor transform. This is our own transform position. And what we want to already consider here is that once we spawn this, we want to have a reference to it, so we can work with it when we holster it and so on afterwards. So we're gonna this is gonna return the blueprint reference. So what we want to do with this is promote this to a variable, and it's gonna pop up over here, and you're gonna call this the current weapon. So after that, you want to attach that to the character's hand right now. So that's just going to be the default behavior for this example here. So attach actor to component. And what we want to attach is the current weapon. And inside, we want to attach it to the mesh. And we want to attach it to the the weapon socket, and want to change this to snap to target, keep world scale. So, and keep that world simulated bodies. I don't know what it does. So that's gonna put the, as you can see, the gun inside his hand, and right now the camera is acting up. I think it's because the mesh here has a collision. Let's get rid of that right now, for now. It's something you want to tweak afterwards so it doesn't fall through the ground if you want to drop it. But right now, just actually, well, it's going to be okay for now. Just remember, you need to have a collision on this one. But right now the camera is acting up, so I'm just not going to do it. So the animation blueprint is keeping us in this idle, unarmed state. So just to make this example a little bit faster, we're going to go and just shortcut that animation. So go inside the animation blueprint, and under the animation graph, the default state machine, we have the idle run, and you have the third person idle run state here. So we have a iron side idle, just going to replace that for now. So he's not going to be able to move around now, but that's going to put him in the right pose. So what we want to do now is to add a key to switch him to the holster, so he can holster the weapon, and we're going to do that inside the third person character. Go to the map here and settings, project settings, and under input, let's add an action mapping key. I pressed this one to get this one. Just going to do it again because it was collapsed. So and call this alternate holster, and pick, for example, E or whatever. So that means when we press E, this is gonna happen. So inside the event graph of the blue third-person character, let's find a suitable place here, somewhere here. We have alternate holster, and the way we're going to do this is to trigger an animation montage. So I'm going to right click here. I'll actually just drag the mesh out, and the way to get a the way to play a montage is to get a reference to the animation blueprint, and we get that on the mesh. We have an animation generated, whatever this one is called, class, which is currently set to third person NMBP, and in order to get a reference to that, we drag this one out and say get anim instance, and you can pick for the mesh. Okay, so it's going to create that one for me, and this is a general anim instance reference, so we need to cast this or do something else. Cast to anim third person anim BP, and what I kind of like to do pretty early in when I make a new project is to make use of macros. So for example, this one, collapse this to a macro, and it's gonna create a new macro. So let's call this get my anim instance. You can double click it, and you can well, the input, it's going to call something, so drag this one up here, and on this one drag out here. It's going to create these arrows here, and also drag in as third person at the bottom here. So that's going to create that this out in the, once you drag it in. So it's just an easier way to get this in a quick way. So once you have this one, you can drag off and say montage play, and you want to play a montage which we haven't made, so we want to make that of the equip animation here. So actually one thing we should do before we do that is to, well, we can make the animation montage first. Let's just do that. So you right click here and say create anim montage, and I'm just gonna call this holster weapon M, and we want to play this on a slot, because usually you want to be able to run around, and even if he's changing his weapon, you want that animation on the legs to play. So for that we're going to create a slot. Okay, so you do this by clicking this little thingy down here, and let's add a slot. Call this the weapon holster slot, something. It's just a name right now. And make sure to select it. So that means that this animation here is going to play on this slot, and right now inside our animation blueprint, you can actually get to it here instead of going out here and pressing this one. That's going to take you the same way. So anyway, what was I getting at? Oh yeah. If we click inside the animation graph, you can see we have only a default state machine, the locomotion state machine. So drag this one out and type slot, and that creates this default slot. So drag this one out and drag this one out, and you can select weapon holster slot. So that's going to play this whatever is playing on this slot. And yeah, So let's see. We wanted to play a montage, and let's go back to the montage. So I put it inside the animation here. Combat here, the holster. Okay. So we will at some point in this animation we wanna let's get rid of the light. How should I do that? Okay, now what? So if you take the slider here and scroll the way down, he's gonna look at closely at his hand. Once he opens his hand, this is the way, this is the place in animation that you want to put the weapon on his back. And normally you can attach it to a place on his back, a bone on his back that is close to this his hand. That's what I wanted to do. So you can see spine 1 is down here, and then you have spine 2, which is here. So I think spine 2 is the one closest to. So I'm just going to pick that one, and it doesn't really matter what you pick, but just pick one of these, I would say, and add a socket and call this the holster socket. And you can right click this one also and say add M4A1, and it's going to drop a weapon in front of him. So just as before, click the holster socket, not the weapon, not the preview, but the socket. And then you want to move it a little bit back, and you want to, whoops, well, it's and now I turned it the wrong way. Great. Okay, and I want to switch to local space. I think it's going to be easier. So what I'm doing here is just aligning up the weapon with the position it is in this frame here, so that I know that once I release the weapon on his back, it's going to be more or less. Right now I'm just going to do it as fast as I can. This is wrong. So it needs to go there and a little bit out, and yeah, well, I'm just gonna match it up as good as I can, something like that. It's gonna be okay, I think. Right about there. That's pretty close. So now that socket knows where, well, if we spawn a weapon at that place, that weapon is going to be there. Okay. So let's finish this off by getting that weapon attached here. So what we have a position here in the animation, and what we want to do is to say we want to fire a notifier. So scroll down a little bit here, and you can see we are at that exact time in animation where we want to detach the weapon on the back. So right click here and say add notify and new notify, and say holster weapon. And if you now go out to the graph here and maybe click the event graph if you're not in the right place, you can type in holster weapon, and event anim notify holster weapon is going to show up. And you could do some of this stuff from here, but I think it's better to tell the third person character blueprint to do something. So what I prefer to do is to say, okay, we need to know what our third person character blueprint is, and the way to do that is to type in anim actor, get owning actor, that's what it's called. And then you can cast this, cast to third person character. Wow. is it called? Well, it is called third person character, sorry. And then connect this one up, and we want to call a function or event on the third person character. So click back to the third person character and type in custom event, not that one, sorry, and call this holster weapon, and click back to the animation blueprint and then drag from the blue one up here, type holster weapon, that one. So that's going to tell our character third person character blueprint that we want to holster the weapon. Okay, so what I also want to do here is to right click these two and collapse to a macro, and we're going to call this get my character PP blue PP. Okay, close that one up, and not that one here. So I don't know why this says error. If you compile it, it's gonna say okay. Anyway, so back inside the third person character, what we want to do now is to say that weapon we have in our hand, which is the current weapon. If you remember, we spawned it and set that variable. We want to take that current weapon and we want to make sure to attach that to a different socket. So call attach to actor to component, and actually this is the same one we used up here. So attach actor to component, and this is what we want to attach, and we still want to attach to our mesh, which is the gray dude, and this time we want to attach it to the holster socket. And snap to target, keep world scale, and if you want to make this nice, you want to kind of keep track on where the weapon is, otherwise it's going to be kind of difficult, because right now we're just only setting one of them. Actually, I forgot to set the montage to play here. Let's do that. So you want to make another variable called holstered weapon, which is also going to be an actor. If you hold the mouse over here, yeah, well, not that one. Well, you could make this the exact type, but since this is a subclass of an actor, I can give it an actor class. Type in actor and pick reference. So once you holster the weapon, you want to take and set this holstered weapon equals to the current weapon. Current weapon. And after that, you want to clear the current weapon. So set that one to nothing. And maybe you want to comment this, because when I read this and see, oh, something is missing, I would tend to connect this one up. That's what I would do. So anyway, let's play this and see if it works. So if I press E, it's gonna drop the weapon on his back. So all I need now to do is to get the weapon back again, and also notice that he's going to remain in this state, but that's out of the scope of this tutorial, I think. So this is just kind of to show how to work with the animation notifiers and to get the weapon holstered. So I'm gonna take a little break, and I see there's an error here. Attach actor to component. Oh, it's because it's not set, of course. Okay, so I'm gonna handle that in a moment. Anyway, let's pause this video for now and continue in the next video. Okay, and bye for now.